Hello and welcome to this video, which is an introduction to qualitative research section of the research methods module. So this will be the second part of the module that will start from week 6 onwards. I first want to introduce myself because I think there'll be some people in the class who perhaps haven't met me before. So my name is Rachel and I am particularly interested in qualitative research methods. This is the research method that I use in my own personal research in HCI and UX. So I'm particularly interested in accessibility, design methods for inclusion, and how people with disabilities make use of kind of commercially available technology. So what is qualitative research? What are we going to be spending the next 5 weeks together figuring out? So this table gives some comparison between quantitative research, which we've done up to this point, and qualitative research, which we're going to do from kind of week 6 onwards, moving forward. So in quantitative research, the main purpose has been to quantify that data and generalize those results from a sample that you have, as in a small number of people, to the rest of the population. What I am more interested in doing is to gain an understanding of the reasons and motivations behind these trends. So we can see that someone uses one technology more than the other. We can see that a particular group, a demographic, is better at doing a task than someone else. But why? So what I want to do, and what researchers like me who use qualitative methods will do, is come along and ask why, and try and figure out why using different methods. So we tend to work with a small number of individual cases. We're not particularly interested about taking that data and trying to make it as generalised to as wide a population as possible. Instead, what we're looking for is using non-statistical analysis methods. So examples are thematic analysis, grounded theory. And the examples of methods that we use tend to be focus groups, interviews, observations, rather than observation of a performance that you might find in quantitative research. So observing how quickly someone did something, how often someone did something. We are more interested in observing interactions within a setting. In what order do things happen? Who does what first? Who's responsible for which parts of that interaction, etc. So the methods that we use and the analysis that we do is completely different to the quantitative stuff that you'll have had before. So hopefully I can motivate you to start asking that why question and coming up with robust methods to help us do that. So what are you going to learn? This is the general schedule that we have. So we have an introduction to qualitative research methods in week 6, and that will give you a broad spectrum of the different types of methods that are available and have you go out and do some more personal research into some of those. In the next week, we'll look at the ethics of human studies. So all of our work involves people, in contrast to quantitative, which may look at algorithm speed, etc. So in all of our studies, we need people to be involved because we have to ask them why or figure out why. So we look at the ethics of involving human participants. And then we're going to pick up on interviews as an example method. You are going to do interviews throughout this process. So in week 8, we're not going to have scheduled class. I'll be available during that time, but we're having no scheduled class that week so that you can use the time to interview a participant. So I'm going to set you up with some participants and each of you is going to go out and interview them for our research paper project. Following that, we're going to look at how we analyse the results of that interview. So I've picked thematic analysis as the method that we're going to use, and we'll have a bit of a discussion as to why that's a valuable method. And then you're going to look at how you might write that up within a research paper. So there are 2 deliverables for this section of the module. One of them is a research paper, and that's what we're going to build on each week. You're going to hand that in at the end of semester. You could have that handed in on the Friday of week 10 if you were working on it all the way through, which I advise you do, or work on it all the way through. And then there will be a multiple choice test, and that test will cover some of the theory behind these methods of qualitative research and analysis. I've set the deadline quite late for that test just to allow maximum flexibility, but you could in theory do it much earlier if you prefer. So the assessment is 100% coursework, and that's to show you that you can, or for you to show me that you can build that knowledge and then apply that knowledge in a situation. So this is not a purely theoretical section of the module, this is a very practical applied use of that knowledge. The class test you can take at a time that suits you, so once you're comfortable and you're confident with the materials, you can then take that test whenever you're ready. So the research paper that we're going to study will be 30% of the module grade, and that is going to be titled How Do Older Adults Use and Experience Emoji? So there'll be some background reading for you to do around emoji, and then we will have you go out and, as I say, interview some participants and analyse those results in order to present them in a research paper. 20% of your grade for the module will be from the multiple choice question class test, and so together that makes 50% of the module and half your grade overall, which will come from this qualitative assessment section. The logistics look like this. There will be some self-directed content, so reading, videos, activities and so on, for you to work through during the week, and that's then completed before our synchronous session. So we have a 2-hour session each week, which we will work through and go through various tasks and activities to make sure that you are ready to do all of the bits you need to do in order to complete your research paper. We're going to use Blackboard for announcements, learning materials, etc. We're going to have all of our synchronous sessions on Teams, so I'll set up a chat discussion on Teams close to the time, and we'll use that as a way to kind of communicate informally, share files when we need to, and so on. And we might use some extra technologies such as Miro, which is an online whiteboard, just to support some of our group work activities, and so we'll drop in a few extra things as we need them. So how do you access additional support? Now, you should know who your advisor is already, and if you don't, there is a handy hint on the screen for you now. If you're a data science or data engineering student, your advisor is going to be Andy Cobley. If you're a student on any of our computing or applied computing degrees, then your advisor is Ian Martin. So if you have any difficulties during the course that means you're unable to engage with the content that I have for you, you should speak to your advisor first of all, speak to me, but make sure someone knows what's going on, because there's a good chance that we can offer you some support. If anyone has specific disability concerns, you have registered with Disability Services, or you think you should, then you can speak to me because I'm the disability advisor for computing. If anyone has disability registration already, I'll see that information, but if you want to discuss it with me in more detail, then drop me an email and we can set up a chat to do that. If you think you need support during the module, whether that's due to the remote working, whether that's isolation, whether that is something to do with accommodation, travel, whatever it is, the Inquiry Centre is another port of call for you. So you can email inquiry@dundee.ac.uk with any of your questions. So if there's something that does not kind of directly link to the module or to your degree in general, you can contact the Inquiry Centre and they'll point you on to the kind of most appropriate person for that. Finally, I just have a note from me. The note from me is that I have a hearing impairment and I lip read during conversation. So if we are having interactive sessions, we are only going to be a small group, so I would really appreciate it if you can turn your camera on when you're speaking to me. It makes the whole thing a bit more social for the rest of the class. but it would make a difference to me when I'm trying to communicate and make sure that you understand what it is that I'm telling you. There's a whole bunch of kind of virtual backgrounds and blurring and so on that you can have running in the background, which means no one needs to see in your house or behind you. Obviously, you can see mine, but I live alone, so I get it that if people perhaps have stuff behind they don't want to share, then think about using a background. So yeah, if you can do that, I would very much appreciate it. So what do you do if you have read the information, you've watched this video, and you've still got questions? If that's the case, you can email me, whether it's about additional support, you want to clarify something, you just want to say, hi, my name is, then drop me an email and we can have a bit of a chat. What I'll also do is in the first session when we meet each other, I'll have some time in there for a Q&A session. So if you've got any questions, you might want to hold on to them for that one, especially if it's a nice generic question that you think other people can benefit from. Be the good guy on day one and ask it for everyone. Okay, that is all I have, but I hope this has given you some encouragement, some information as to what we're going to cover in the next few weeks together, and I will see you in the first class.